Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, we're in that few week hiatus period right before the 3.14 league gets announced, and it is time to get into the theory crafting. And you might notice here that I have a Vortex character, of which I've went through, benchmarked a whole shitload of stuff in poe.ninja today. Took a day off just to have a bit of a break. And decided to do some PoE-age and theory crafting for my next build. And I've got to say, either this or a Chaos Slinger, which I'll do a theory craft on that as well, and release a video in the next week or so in regards to that, are going to be my league starters. The reason why is dot builds at league start tend to be a very powerful option because they're easy to gear and easy to clear content with in the early days before you can really get the currency that you need. Pardon me, to invest into something bigger. And bloody hell, that pesto pasta did not go down well. So what have we got here? What's the mechanics? What are we using? Okay, so our main skill, when she stops talking for a second there. Sorry. So the main skill that we're going to use here is Vortex, and what Vortex is a dot cold damage dot or damage over time skill. Basically, you're going to run around and you're going to drop this as you go. Now, you might see the weird thing here is that I don't actually have this mapped to a cast button per se, but I've mapped this to my move button. And the reason why is as I move around maps, I will be able to drop my Vortex everywhere I go, and then that'll just continue to stack over the top of enemies and do stupid damage. Now, another really important facet of this build is it is a low life build using a shavs, and if you normally at the start of the league you're not going to get a shav straight away, so what you're going to run is a Solaris Lorica, which is a really dirt cheap and nasty 6-link chest piece that you can get really quickly at the start of a league for about 10 to 20 chaos usually from the get-go. That takes a little bit to craft the right sockets on it. You'll need to get chromes up, but that's how we're going to start this build when we do it, because this is probably going to be the build that we run. Now, from there, essentially, we're going to be running Spell Slinger. So 2 reservations of Spell Slinger, and how Spell Slinger works, and this took a bit of research today. So in particular with this type of build, you attach all your spells to Spell Slinger, right? So in this case, we're going to be running Creeping Frost, Frostbolt. We've got Spell Slinger in the helm with faster projectiles. We've got Cold Snap on a Spell Slinger setup as well. Bone Chill, all that sort of shit. And then what you're going to do, what Spell Slinger does, is then you reserve it as though it's any other aura. So in this case, I've got 2 reservations of Spell Slinger. I've got it socketed into 2 locations. But that means you can't cast the spell. So how you then cast Spell Slinger is then you do a 1-socket power siphon. So then when you power siphon, as you can see, it casts your spells. So the way that Spell Slinger works is any attack that you apply using a wand, it will then cast the spells that you've reserved mana for against your Spell Slinger gems. Now the caveat is, for each spell that you want to have operating through Spell Slinger, you need to have a Spell Slinger setup in your build. So the more spells you attach, they all have to be running through Spell Slinger. They're going to cost more mana, and then basically you're just going to use, for example, in this case, Power Siphon, because it does chance to gain power charges and Culling Strike, which are fantastic things. Now, that's basically the mechanics. So as you go through, you're going to apply Cold Dot, and then you're going to be casting to basically apply Cold Snap. That's going to generate Frenzy Charges, which is going to make you run like a beast. And I'll show you in a minute. I'll actually, because this character is not min and max and the gems are really low, I'll show you on maybe a tier 10 map to give you a bit of an example. And I should say, like, I've put almost no effort into gearing this. This is all just using scrap gear on my standard account. So yeah, basically that's the mechanic, and then you're going to buff up dot damage. And some of the and obviously from low life, you're going to be running a standard low life kit. So I guess in talking about gearing, so the gear that you're actually going to use in this circumstances, you're going to use either a Solaris Lorica instead of a shavs. If you can't get a shavs early on, shavs going to take a bit. Then you're going to get a Prism Guardian, and that's going to let you reserve life instead of mana. You'll socket that with Malevolence, Discipline, and Hatred. Then in my case, I'm running Sintrek boots, but quite frankly, it doesn't even matter what type of boots you get. If you get elusive boots, even better. And then basically you'll run Power Siphon, Flame Dash, and Arcane Support, and you might have something, you know, I'll just put that on D&D. You might have something else that, you know, you want to put in there. I haven't kitted this out, so, you know, you might have Vow Righteous Fire, which is going to increase your damage further. So then in your gloves, you're going to essentially then do a Cold Snap setup with Spellslinger, and I've got Zealotry sitting in this right now. Part of this non-min and maxed means I don't have the right enchant to be able to minimize mana in my helm to run Zealotry yet, but I'll put a POB up for this one, which is sort of a real scrap together POB, and then I'll put a POB up for the one that I used as a reference point, which is this one here. So a player called Fractured Cultist actually played this build. Now I'm going to modify this a little bit more as well. This build's powerful. It can be more powerful though, and it can be played differently and a lot cheaper as well. But that being said, no headhunters or anything like this. This is actually quite a good template to run off of, and I'll put a link to this this profile while it's up as well, and the POB as well. So thank you very much to that player for putting that tree together, but we're going to adversely change it as we go to make it better or more affordable for the user, everyday player or everyday user. Now, from there, I've reconfigured this to just use a Baited Breath. Baited Breath's a really good item. And then at this stage, I had 2 spare opal rings, so you know I've got 2 opal rings. Ideally, you get an opal ring with a curse or a hex on it, like Frostbite or something like that. But it didn't have one available. And you could also do a Mark of the Shaper setup with an Elder Ring, and that's going to increase your spell damage as well by up to, I think, like 80%. So there's also that alternative. Now you'll also run a Presence of Chayula. Now right now I've got Tranquility anointed into this, but you're actually in the final tree. You would actually go with Breath of the Rime, and this is going to increase your cold dot even further. So from there, literally the wand I have is garbage. It's literally the trashiest wand that I could put on this. You can do much better. You probably want 1+ to intelligence and 1+ to cold gems, as in 1+ to intelligence gems where possible. And you're going to put the big thing here is trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. You'll get that from doing the Jun missions, and basically taking down the whatever they're called, can't remember, the Syndicate. Sorry. For the helm, I'm just running a Crown of the Inward Eye here. It gives you really good stats across the board. This isn't min and max. It could go to 21%, but it gives you a shitload of armor, shitload of mana, more life to reserve, and a shitload of energy shield, which is all good things that you need for this build to work. The other good thing about this is it drops really easily when you do the first Awakener. So if you get to Awakener 4, it's literally one of the most common drops that you'll get there. So it's very easy to get once you get to sort of endgame mapping. And let's be honest, Cyrus 4 is a nothing boss, and even Cyrus 9 is a nothing boss. So yeah, and then basically on this, I haven't got it on here, but you're going to go for the Helm Enchant. That's going to reduce your mana reservation for Discipline by 20%, and that's going to allow you to run Zealotry, which is going to increase your crit, and that's going to increase your spell damage as well, and that gives you a huge chunk of DPS. Now this tree, if you can get that working just as it is right now with no min and maxing, gets to about 1.2 million cold dot alone, which is pretty damn powerful. Now that's also the caveat here is, you know, we're talking like none of these gems are max level yet. The damage spiking as you get up to level 20 or 21 on Vortex is crazy. It scales really hectically, and having hypothermia and anything with dot damage to amp it up is even better. Flasking wise, you can really do what you want. I just used some cool flasks that I had sitting around, but you can pretty much run whatever you want on this build. It's going to work. Now, the cluster jewel setup, the reason why I went through about 3 or 4 different trees until I got to the right setup The cluster jewels right now are pretty shanky, but you know, we're going to run deep chill in both of these, and then, you know, we might go cold-blooded or circling oblivion or something like that in both, but you're only going to be running 2-4 clusters in this, and you could really extrapolate this and modify the shit out of this. But the tree itself is relatively so well, pardon me, for the tree, essentially, you know, we're going to skip these ES nodes up here. We're going to come down, pick up all of these health nodes, move down here and pick up this entire right side of the hemisphere first, and then you'll come up, you'll pick up your nodes here. Then you'll basically work back across, and you'll get Arcane Will, Arcane Focus. We're going to go with Mystic Bulwark. There is room in here for a Watcher's Eye, which will be in the second POB that I'll put through, but I don't have the right Watcher's Eye just sitting in my standard stash, and I'm too lazy to go and try and procure it because it's like 5.9x, and I just don't feel like spending currency on my standard account. It's a hoarder's account. So then you'll get Arcane Guarding, Unnatural Calm. You'll get your second cluster jewel sockets here. You'll pick up Elemental Overload, essentially because you just want your crits to proc more elemental damage. And then we'll come down and pick up Foresight. This will just get you up to a huge ES pool, and it's very easy to get up in ES and as well. With shitty gear, I'm at nearly 8,000 ES, so it's quite tanky. And then you'll come down, get Zealot's Oath, and then get Sovereignty, which is going to just max up your auras and buffs like that. So this tree will be in the POB as it is right now, and there'll also be the optimum tree in the POB as well, based on the profile that you saw just before. So outside of that, there's not really much to this mechanic. It's pretty straightforward. But the biggest understanding is just getting your head around how Spellslinger works, and the fact that Spellslinger will reserve mana for 2 of or however many skills you socket in this circumstance, and the way that you're going to trigger it is having a non-linked Power Siphon skill as your main attack skill as you run through. But that's pretty much it as far as gearing, pathing, and basic mechanics go. So I put some. I'll take you through a map, and you can have a look for yourself. Okay, so we're just going to run a really simple T10 strand from last league. As you can see, I got a fair bit of shit on this character, so yeah. And this is like not even doing near the. You know, we're not talking level 20 gems. This is just not even near where you would be by the time you get to level 96. You would have everything maxed out. But I'll actually just turn this volume up. So what I should also explain, is the Ascendancy. So we are using the Occultist. And the reason why you can see those explodes is because of Profane Bloom. And when you hex enemies, and the way that we hex enemies is we have Frostbite and Elemental Weakness in our wand with a cast when trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. That's going to proc Frostbomb, Frostbite, and Elemental Weakness, and then that's going to synergize with Profane Bloom, which means enemies explode. The other side of it is Malediction gives you 2 curses. Void Beacon basically gives you crazy amounts of resistance penetration, if you want to call it that, and then Frigid Wake just means that you can't be chilled and can't be frozen, and you got plenty of uptime. But that's basically, and you can modify those as you go too. So as you can see, like from a clear speed perspective, just really fast, and like, you know, we're not min and maxed at all. So realistically, you could just run around and literally just walk through enemies. You don't even need to use your skill if you've got enough cold dot. And you know, we're not even at, we're at level 15 on our Vortex gem. It's just crazy powerful. I don't have Veil Discipline yet either. This is just naturally this powerful. So it's actually quite a fun build. It's so freaking easy. You can see everything is still leveling up. Just going to skip that because I find that content pointless right now. And if you wanted to get that cooldown reduced on the Vortex as well, you could run cooldown reduction on your belt, which would modify how the server tick rate works. As you can see, you just sort of run around the enemies and they die. I think that's the boss is done. Yeah. Literally that easy. So yeah, that's pretty much my theory crafted build for next league. I'm already tested it for you guys, so you know it works. You can see it. Mean to say, like as a league starter, getting to T10, just being able to run through T10s, that means you could just farm freaking ancient orbs with harbingers through Voldo's Rest. You know, you could do any number of things in the early game. As it stands right now, you know, if you were leveling up these gems properly and they weren't, you know, really shitty low-level gems, with 900k dot on Vortex, you're going to be able to take down Cyrus 4 in no time. In fact, probably be able to take Cyrus 6 in no time. And then everything else that you've stacked on this, you know, early days, nothing here is highly expensive. These are dirt cheap. This is usually like 1 chaos. These are like 15 chaos at the start of the league, or once they start dropping within week 2 or whatever, but you can probably farm those up, or you know, find another alternative. But by the second week, you'll have access to this in no time. Solaris Loricas you can get from day dot in league. They pretty much start dropping in the first 2 days, where the hardcore start farming pretty heavily. So yeah, you'll be able to pick that up early, and you know, if you're fast on getting your map done, you can get to Cyrus 4 on the first day and have this drop. Prism Guardians drop pretty frequently as well. They tend to be like 30 chaos at the start of the league because everyone bloody uses them. But you know, everything else here is just, you know, shitty gear that I've scrapped together, and realistically you don't need this, you don't need these, you don't need this level of bloody gauntlet or gloves. You could get shittier gloves and still have a big ES pool. But the moral of the story is this build is incredibly affordable to set up and just really fucking powerful. But yeah, anyway, check out the POB in the description. I'll put the 2 up and a link to that profile as well. While it is active, usually what happens is when they reset the league, they tend to drop off, but and they become broken links, but you'll be able to get the POBs anyway. I'll post those up as progress POB for this, and or the test POB, and you can try it before you get into the next league. And yeah, anyway, until next time, like and sub, and well, if you think this video is shit, you can dislike me, and yeah, bye.